Good afternoon. So what do you think? Is there life out there? It's hard to know, isn't it? Now, I mean, what has this got to do with SAP? I think, for me, it's consistent with the theme this morning, is that it's a really great time to be in technology. It's a great time to be a consumer, but the cloud has been critical to enabling a whole range of new services and capabilities that we as enterprises can leverage. And we talked about kind of the cloud. Many of us know the cloud as being something that's driven by cost and capability advantages, cost and convenience over the last decade. But there's no question we are firmly in an era where, having established a baseline of technology, we can now go to a place where really what has seemed reasonably impossible before is now possible. Okay, so this is just one of the services that we offer, which, as you can see, it's leveraging a number of great technologies that in the machine learning and AI world. So, as we look at disruption and transformation in enterprises, the journey for many of us started with Mark Andreessen, that famous venture capitalist prediction that software is eating the world. And it's pretty much played out that way. As enterprises, certainly there's been a lot of value destroyed in the last decade. I mean, as a guess, even within the UK market, within the FTSE 100 index, have a guess at how many companies are still present today. I mean, it's less than 50%. Since the heady heights of 2099. But on the flip side, these 4 companies alone have created more than $1.5 trillion of enterprise value. So there's huge opportunity with this digital transition that's going on right now. But I don't hear many people talking about the Uber in their industry. So disruption is less of a theme, certainly for me in the last 4 to 5 years. A bigger driver for change has been changing consumer expectations. And I've worked very hard to not put Google product in here, although I did fail on the bottom left-hand corner. But I just wonder how many of you use a doorbell, some kind of a connected doorbell these days. You've got one, right? I have one too. For me, that's a pretty life-altering experience. So we're as users, driven by all of these technical innovations, our expectations are changing, and we see this in Google search. So we're searching the most mundane items online, toothbrushes, up in the last 18 months. And these are statistics I drew from Google Trends. Travel pillows up 200%, doorbells 600%. Paper towels 173%. So we're expecting to discover literally everything online. Not only that, but we're becoming more impatient. Now, same-day delivery is an expectation, and we know that with Amazon Prime. However, what might be more surprising is the increases we're seeing in last-minute airline travel. So same-day airline travel, 2.5x up, and as consumers, we go out and we haven't booked restaurants. We're doing Google searches, what's open now and available. Okay, so we're leaving things to the very last minute, and not only that, but we're expecting to be wildly assisted in the process. Now, all of these things are creating Google, I should say, has been has played its part with more than 8 products now at planet scale in resetting these expectations. So the implications for business and enterprises with this change and this driver is quite profound. And we as businesses need to operate in a much more agile and collaborative way. We need to be much more data-driven, get the feedback from the way that our customers and consumers are interacting with our service and product. And we need to become there is a real opportunity, I should say, in becoming much more predictive and automated in our operations. So what we want to talk about today, and it's a bit of a team sport here, we want to look at the basis and where we've, as Google, has spent a lot of time over the last couple of years, is making sure that the foundation that we put in place, that we optimize Google Cloud to be the very best place to run your SAP implementation. And that's a hygiene factor. But having got that baseline in place to look at where we can go beyond and what are the new, how can we operationalize the core data that you have tied up in those SAP systems to unleash your potential. And then rather than talking about customer reference, I'm really delighted that we have a real customer with us today who can share their experience. Okay, so let's make a start. I'm going to hand over to Peter. Oh, sorry, I was just, before we go there, I love your feedback and we would really value your feedback on these sessions as we go. Okay, why Google Cloud? Pete?
Thank you, Alan. So no pressure following Alan's kickoff, and I think obviously Groove Armada were here yesterday as well, so hopefully your expectations are equally matched by my time this morning. So I see that, and I see that video especially, and every time I see that video it gives me real excitement about the possibilities of what Google Cloud can bring to you as customers. And what I'm going to do for the next few minutes is explain to you how we put the foundations in place for you as SAP customers to run your workloads on Google Cloud, but to then unlock the possibilities of all the things and all the technology that we can bring to you to really excite what you can do with Google Cloud. Now the reality is that Google has built a very tightly integrated, planet-scale capability with 8 massive applications that serve billions of consumers. But what we can see is that data is a key part of that, and unlocking that data is a key part to how we drive those things. And that's really what's important to us, and what we can do with SAP is how do we unlock that data? How do we unlock that data with the services that we can provide around the Google Cloud Platform? You know, imagine a world where we could take that SAP data that's locked up in that system and unleash it with all of these capabilities. That's when we can really start to imagine a world where we can start to add real value with our SAP implementations. Having SAP at the core of that data, and for most of you, if you are SAP customers, let's be honest, that it forms such a foundational part of everything you do within your business, using that data to do something different, to get value out of it, using all these services that are easy for you to consume, things like AutoML, where you're not having to train the solution. The solution is there for you to start consuming that. With all of that information that you can feed to it from an SAP standpoint, suddenly unlocks massive capability and massive possibilities. The start point for us really though is making sure that we're certified to run the SAP applications that our customers are using. And the really important thing, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, is the fact that we have that covered. So we are fully certified to run all the major SAP applications that hopefully you're using today. But really it then comes down to 3 key areas. How do we create a very flexible, a very scalable, a very agile environment that means that you can bring those SAP environments to life? How do we simplify that for you? How do we get you there quicker so you can then start taking advantage of those things? And as Alan's alluded to already in his session, how do we unlock that innovation capability? That's where the real value is. Running that foundational layer is important to get in place, but really what we want to do is say, okay, well what's next? What's that question that you can't answer? What's that challenge that keeps you awake at night that we can use all of that insight within that SAP system and bring that to life with the Google Cloud Platform? So there are a couple of foundational elements to why this is really important to us. And one of the most important of those is the fact that we're 100% virtualized. So everything we do is fully virtualized. We have a 12 terabyte certification currently, but that will grow over the next 12 to 18 months. Virtualization is really, really important for a couple of reasons. One, it allows us to do per second billing. So if you only use your SAP environment for 670 seconds, as an example, we're only going to charge you for 670 seconds. But the other key thing about that virtualization platform is the flexibility about how you then deploy that landscape. This is not about standing up everything from day one. This is about standing up what you need as and when you need it. And it's about standing up that extra capacity as and when you need it, but then turning that capacity down when you don't need it anymore. That for you as customers of an SAP system is clearly a vital thing about how you meet the needs of your consumers. How do we change that landscape to make sure that it meets the peaks and troughs of our business? The ability to ramp that in peak times is a critical thing. Security is critical. It's critical to the billions of consumers that use all of our products, but it's even more critical to you as enterprise customers, where a breach in that security can be highly costly and highly disruptive to your organization. SAP as a solution houses company information, financial information, customer information. But rest assured that we take security as a #1 priority, and we've got that covered for you. Our hardware infrastructure has been custom designed. We design that infrastructure all the way from chip to chiller, and security is a critical part of that infrastructure that we create. We make sure that that infrastructure is up to date. We make sure that everything is in place to make sure that you have the confidence in our platform. We understand the provenance from start to finish of that environment, and we make sure that security is critical. We've also done our best to make sure we reduce that vendor in the middle problem. Because we create everything is our own. If we spot a problem, we can fix that problem and get it back up and running as quickly as possible. Another key part of this is our network. So we don't follow a hot potato approach where you're passed off onto the public internet and you have then various stops as you go from the start to the finish. What we follow is a cold potato approach. We get you onto our network as soon as possible. We encrypt your data as soon as it gets onto that network, and we then only drop you off onto the public internet at the last possible point, as close to you as an organization as possible. We also know that downtime costs money. Having your SAP environment not available for any time will have a dollar value associated to it. And again, as Google Cloud, we want to make sure that we minimize the impact of that downtime as much as possible. We have a solution in place called Live Migration, which actually allows us to move your virtual environment from one place to another with 0 downtime. No downtime whatsoever, so no cost for us making sure that the infrastructure is fully patched and fully available for to use. That clearly has a massive impact on you as an organization. What's great news for us as Google Cloud is that we have momentum. We have customers globally that are starting to see the value in running various types of SAP workloads, whether it's S/4HANA, whether it's BW, whether it's various other SAP applications, running that on the Google Cloud platform. And some of those customers are here. I'd like to thank those customers for putting their trust in us, and all the partners as well that take that as a challenge and run with those customers to make sure that we have a fully operational system. One thing that you may have noticed in the keynote today, if you were there, and it actually got announced in the keynote yesterday, is we're putting into a program in place to help new customers start to experience what that means to run on the cloud platform. So the Cloud Acceleration Program is something we've put into place with a number of key SIs and a number of key software vendors to help you get to that environment quicker, to make sure the operational efficiencies are in place, and to make sure we can unlock those innovation capabilities for you. And I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage you to go to the SAP booth, where a number of those technology partners are there, and obviously there are a number of other partner booths around the hall today that will be able to talk to you about what they can do to support you on your journey. So with that, I'd like to welcome Alan back to the stage.
So having got that foundation in place, we wanted to dedicate a bit of this section really to what we can do beyond making Google Cloud the very best place to run SAP. And I mean, we've heard many times across this couple of days is that the benefit of moving to the cloud has to be a bit more than cost and convenience, particularly with the level of investment that's involved in moving a core mission critical system like SAP into the cloud. There's got to be a lot of added value, and it's absolutely our preoccupation to explore the potential that unlocks. But maybe, you know, just looking at how Google has actually been on this journey ourselves is quite informative. So we are now a 100% AI-driven business, and both for delivering great new experiences, and many of you are probably Gmail users. And I'm not sure how many of you noticed this Smart Compose feature that we launched last November. Yeah, so now this is not predictive text. This is AI-driven auto-completion of your sentences based on how you speak and based on your interactions in the past. We mirrored that on mobile, actually, where you've got a smart reply option that you may have seen. But if you use photos, you're using several machine learning and AI systems where, having put smart devices in our pockets for the last number of years, all with super powerful cameras, here we are in a situation where nobody can find a photograph. So you want to be able to either to search a photograph based on name of the person in the photograph, or maybe some of the content. Show me photographs of Lucas with a pumpkin, for example. If you've ever said, "Hey Google" to your device, you're using several machine learning and AI capabilities. One that takes that audio, translates that into text, another that understands the sentiment and the idioms and the meaning actually of your request, and then another that reconverts that back into audio in over 100 languages in near real time. This is a very powerful capability. So capability to create new experiences. Now, we also use machine learning and AI to transform how Google operates. Worldwide, energy consumption of data centers is about 1% of, somebody told me actually it's nearer to 2% of worldwide energy consumption. So this is a massive preoccupation for Google to make sure that we are optimizing and reducing our energy footprint. And you heard Thomas Kurian's announcement about Google being, well, we've been 100% carbon neutral since 2007, but this massive investment we're making in renewable energy. And this is a technology that literally when you turn it on, we see 20% efficiency in energy cooling. And we have used that same technology around battery life in Android to deliver extended user experience on Android. And not only that, but here's a great example of where we've used the same technology to really explore a new source of value and a new business for Google as a part of the wider Alphabet group. Okay, so when we see statistics such as, by 2021, 75% of all enterprise applications will use AI, we 100% believe it because we walk that talk ourselves. So, let's just maybe apply those foundations. Maybe Pete, you want to have a look at that?
Absolutely.
How we apply those foundations into delivering that kind of advantage for SAP clients.
Thank you, Alan. So you've heard a bit of a theme through the session this morning, that data is really critical. And the reason why we believe as Google Cloud that we're the best people to help you on that journey is because data is our mission. Right? Data is driven into our DNA, and everything that we do in Google Cloud is ultimately driven by data. So who better to help you on that journey where you can become a data-driven organization? And as we've talked about already, SAP typically is the foundation of that data. And what we try to do is put in the foundations and then the capability to say, you've got huge volumes of information sat in your SAP system, years of experience that's sat there, and imagine a world where we could start to combine that with other data sources, whether that's Google data, so it's search trends, whether it's ads data because you happen to be an ads customer. It could be any data, but imagine a world where we can start to bring that SAP data to life by combining it in things like BigQuery. All of a sudden, it unlocks possibilities of really driving the data value within your organization. I use the word imagine, but actually we don't need to imagine it because we have customers already doing it. We have customers taking advantage of us as a foundation layer with all of that capability from an analytics and an ML perspective to drive their organization. And one of those is Home Depot. They had some challenges. They had some challenges around how they could make sure that their environment coped with peak times in their organization. Typically that's around now Black Friday and Cyber Monday, those days where we buy stuff that we don't need because it's super cheap. they see a lot of traction through their website. So they needed to make sure that their website could handle the huge traffic spikes. But they also wanted to understand how not only the data within their SAP system, but the data from what people were searching for online, how they could use that insight to start changing their supply chain. How can we use that information to actually drive our business slightly differently? And through a combination of hosting, analytics, machine learning, and AI, they've not only increased their online business, they've actually increased spend in store from people that have started their journeys online. They've changed the velocity of deliveries, and actually using some of that insight, they've been able to reduce the number of stockouts, so ultimately changing the number of lost revenue opportunities by making sure the products that people have been searching for online, they make sure they've got the right products in the right place, in the right stores. Now, we could talk a lot about other customers, but as Alan alluded to right at the beginning, what's better than actually hearing from a customer live? So I'd love to welcome Dirk and Kevin to the stage from Multipharma.
So how does it work?
Here.
Okay. Okay, so for most of you guys, you don't know Multipharma, huh? You've been to Belgium? No? Well, yeah, you did? Okay. So Multipharma is a chain of about 270 pharmacies, all owned by us, so no franchise. We have about 2,000 people working for us, all on our payroll. Basically, because we are that big, we're also a retailer. So this means that we have our own warehouse, which is extremely highly automated. I think we have a degree of about 92% of automation, well, which is easy because we only ship small boxes. So we're not a food processor, so we can do that. The other part of our business is that we have what we call an IMP processing center, in which we repackage medicine from blisters to pouches, which are individually prepared for patients mostly in rest homes, but now also for people at home. Okay, so this is about a highly automated warehouse, a small picture. It's all based on robots. Actually, we're doing IoT without knowing it. About how big is Multipharma? We have about 8% market share in Belgium, so that's pretty significant. I think our next competitor has about 100 stores, so we're really the largest chain in Belgium. Now, why the hell is a company like ours going to things like Google Clouds, talking about S/4HANA and such? Well, that's fairly easy. Our market is changing. Up to, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago, running a pharmacy was easy. You simply went to the bank, got a loan to buy an expensive pharmacy, and you knew the customers were coming. And, well, it's easy in the sense that there was only a 4 to 5% price difference on the Belgian markets. So it was just getting a loan, and then people were coming, and you got your revenue. Well, things are changing now, in the sense that there are newcomers, and these are competing on price, which wasn't the case before, and they're working together with big retail chains like Colruyt or Kruidvat, which is a Dutch chain, and we have a player like Amazon, getting into the pill pack business, which is exactly what we are doing with our IMP business. So the business is changing. What I'm telling you over here with this slide is exactly what Alan and Pete have been talking about. So it's the famous Gartner slide with your systems of records. That's what we're doing with this project. So an SAP retail implementation based on HANA. Get the basics right, which allows us to differentiate ourselves with things like Salesforce technology. But in the end, we want to do innovative stuff, talked already about by Alan and Pete. So in the end, once you have the data in your system of record, once you have your system that differentiate yourself, you need to innovate, and that's what we want to do based on big query technology, ML technology, and such. And now give the floor to Kevin, who will
Thank you. So let's take a look
tell you more about the technical details.
Let's take a look at what Multipharma is installing on GCP, Google Cloud. You can split it in 3 different layers. You have the business layer, the integration layer, and the management systems. So at the business layer, you have the S4HANA retail or ERP system. Then you have CAR, customer activity repository. And that's a warehouse where we are putting all sales data in it, offline, online. And then you have BW on HANA with on top BAO. That's the visualization tool to use that data and visualize it to the business. And then on the integration layer, we are using SAP PO, Process Orchestrator, as a standard integration platform at Multipharma. SAP Data Services as ETL tool can also be used to integrate with BigQuery. And then SAP SLT, the landscape transformation layer, where you can replicate on database level tables from one system to the other one. So for example, also from HANA to BigQuery. And the last part is the management of our landscape, so the management system, SAP Solution Manager, that we use to centralize the user administration of our landscape, and also SAP Landscape Management. That's a tool that we have found to really lower the time we are spending on infrastructure and more spending that time for innovation and other kind of things. So let's see why we have chosen for Google Cloud as public cloud provider for our SAP landscape. So we did a really detailed benchmarking exercise to find the right public cloud provider. So you have 3 important and certified cloud providers to host SAP on: Amazon, Azure, and Google Cloud. So we have chosen some pillars to make the right decision. So let's start with the SAP partnership Google Cloud has with SAP. And the co-innovation and the co-developments they are doing together to build new services, new applications together. Also on the level of virtual instances, Intel, Google Cloud, and SAP worked together to create a chip called Intel Optane to reduce the time to load your data from persistent disks into the memory, because that's really an expensive and a difficult and a time-consuming exercise. But with these new chips, it's really going faster. Avoid expenses. We are also using only our development and test systems during business hours. It's a waste of time and a waste of money to let them on during the night. So we are shutting them down at 8 in the evening and spinning them back up in the morning at 7. And we are gaining a lot of money with that. But Google Cloud is also telling customers when a customer has overscaled this instance. So you say, okay, you can downscale that instance and you will get that amount of money back, and that's really nice. We are using health data, so having our health data in a Belgium data center, because we are a Belgium company, that's also really nice to have. On the level of security, the fact that you can use the same security by design Google is using in their infrastructure, and you as a customer can use that for your data, that gives you trust. The standard high availability, live migration, Pete already told that. So if there is, for example, a security patch that you need to apply on an Intel chip, for example, you as a customer, or we as a customer, doesn't see that, because they are doing it on a hardware level, and our application will still run. That's really a high benefit. On technology, we are also deploying other applications, or we're also performing other projects on IT level. So we are working together with Salesforce. We are implementing Salesforce. We are creating a new mobile applications. So instead of having only that foundation, we also use Google Cloud Services to to solve those kind of IT issues. They're also on integration, on backend for a mobile application, and also on monitoring. Stackdriver, it's really a nice tool to integrate also SAP application thresholds and data into their monitoring to have a central place to monitor your entire landscape on virtual instance level, but also on SAP level. And so with all those points, Google Cloud is really the best option at that moment for putting your SAP landscape on it. So this is a slide with all the partners we are using in our SAP retail implementation project. So we have a part for the infrastructure part, and then you have the business implementation. So, as I already said, we are using Google Cloud as public cloud provider. We are working together with Forecast. Forecast is a Belgium partner that we use to actually build our cloud, build our Google Cloud resources. On the level of installing and configuring SAP, we're also working together with a Belgian partner called Exertum. And really the business implementation of our whole project is done by Deloitte. So Dirk, my colleague, is not really an SAP guy, and I'm really an SAP guy, a technical guy. And the first thing Dirk asked me when we started the infrastructure project is, I want to have SAP serverless in a DevOps environment. And I said to Dirk, okay, Dirk, that's not something that's going on SAP. It's really old school, running on virtual instances, and you will not get that DevOps and that serverless thing into an SAP landscape. And together with the SAP engineering team, Preston White actually, we came to SAP landscape management. And that's, like I said, really the thing to reduce the time you spend on managing your environment in your public cloud, and take that time to really innovate and do other things with your SAP data. And it's really, you can see it as a key to get the benefits of the public cloud into your SAP landscape. You can see it a bit like Kubernetes, but then for your SAP landscape. You only take care of your SAP applications, and it doesn't need to think about your virtual instance or storage, etc. SAP landscape management is doing it for you. So it simplifies, it automates your SAP landscape. So like I said, we are shutting down the systems during the night and during the weekend, that we are doing in an automated way, thanks to some landscape management. It's also a central place to monitor and to check your whole SAP landscape. So we only have our landscape at Google Cloud, but you can have customers that has their landscape on-premise or in other cloud providers and on GCP, and you can use SAP Landscape Manager to manage that landscape in a hybrid way. So let's get a bit further there. So that's a nice idea on how we could automate SAP deployments together with Google Cloud. It's an idea. We are not using it, but that's something in the architecture team will try to achieve. It's to deploy the infrastructure layer or the infrastructure components together with Terraform in an automated way. Then deploy and configure SAP together with Ansible, and then together with SAP Landscape Management apply some task called PCA task to really, because that's really something that takes a lot of time, that's a post-installation step on top of your SAP landscape, and that you can completely automate together with SAP Landscape Management. I already said, try to simplify your landscape when you are migrating to the public cloud. Try to use all standard functionalities Google Cloud is providing you to simplify your landscape. So for example, we are using like you see on this slide. Google Cloud Load Balancer to really balance the HTTP load from between different zones. So if one zone will go down, thanks to Google Cloud Load Balancer, it will go directly to the other zone and continue it there. And if your other zone is going back again, it will start propagating to the both zones. But also on the level of analytics, you can simplify the landscape and you can reduce your costs. So we are using still SAP BW on HANA. It's an in-memory database SAP HANA. It costs a lot of money. We are talking about databases of 1 terabyte running in memory, so those kind of instances are not cheap. So why can you not combine technologies of Google Cloud together with SAP BW on HANA? So you will only store your hot data into SAP BW and put your cold data in BigQuery. So you are still using the benefits of SAP BW to process the data, but you will gain money to put your cold data on BigQuery. That's the first step. And then a second step is really migrating everything around analytics in BigQuery. But that's a really massive exercise for the company. So start with combining technologies and then going to BigQuery. We are also using Google Cloud Services into our integration layer. So all communication between our pharmacies and our S/4HANA retail system and customer activity system are going via Google PubSub and cloud storage at the moment. That are really massive and good Google Cloud services, and they are standard. Please simplify again your landscape and use as much as possible standard Google Cloud services. Also on non-SAP projects. So here it's a mobile application that we are developing to really personalize the communication between our patients and our pharmacies, where we are using Google Cloud services like Data Store and Cloud Function together with SAP API management to create a really robust and secured API layer between the backend system of our pharmacies and the mobile application.
Well, yeah.
So thank you, Kevin and Dirk, for telling that story. I mean, we've taken full advantage of those guys over the last couple of days, and there's a reason we've done that, because that story is fantastic. And it really resonates with everything that Alan and I have already spoken about, right? It's about the foundation layer for them to get that in place, but to use all of those other capabilities, whether it's BigQuery, to combine data from SAP, or whether it's non-SAP, and it's all the other functionality in Google Cloud. These guys are really doing it, so thank you guys for your support. So just before I get Alan back on stage, I just kind of wanted to wrap up why we believe that Google Cloud is a great place for you to run your SAP workloads. What we're developing ourselves and developing with our partners is the ability to get you onto that platform really quickly. And whether it's using things like Terraform scripts or lots of the automation capability that we have, we want to get you there as quickly as possible. And things like the Cloud Acceleration Program what we've already touched on is one way to help you achieve that. The run piece for me is a given. We've talked about the network, we've talked about the virtualization infrastructure, we've talked about the security, and we've talked about how we reduce downtime. Those things are fantastic capabilities that we'd love to speak to you more about and how you can really start to benefit from those things. But the last piece, and really the theme of the session today, was how can we innovate? How can we really drive transformation in your organization by using all of this capability? And hopefully that message has come across today.
Maybe just to a couple of words just before we wrap on the transformation journey. So, you know, a lot of what we talked about was technology based, and I'm sure your own experience in your transformation, a lot of it is down to, you know, people and process and culture. And, you know, we in Google like to kind of as we look at how we continuously innovate and have continuously innovated over 20 years, we break things down into 3 elements. One is the way we go about doing things, so agility, operating in an agile type of mode continuously. And linked to that are things like innovation funding. So we in Google have something called 20% time. That means that any Googler with a good idea can go and explore that idea for 1 day a week, which is a tremendously powerful thing. We've pioneered workspaces that we can bring people together to kind of to develop those ideas, and I think we were probably the first to really take the ping pong table to extremes 20 years ago, beyond the water cooler of the 90s. And what we've had to develop as we scaled was that kind of the ability to create that collaboration space more virtually by developing collaboration tooling around G Suite. But of course, when you're super successful in agile and agility and building software in a much more cloud native fashion, so breaking software up into little bits called microservices and deploying little and much more often, the stress that creates is really on your core IT. So you move to a world where the single biggest KPI in agility is your release frequency. So you're moving from releasing a handful of releases per year to multiple releases per day. Anybody hazard a guess at how many releases or deployments of containers or application instances Google has on a daily basis? Any idea? So 800,000, right? So it's a lot. So the thing that couples, so as soon as you become an agile in your way of working, you've really got to put in place some form of self-service IT. We call that the cloud today. Google pioneered that, but also many of the other hyperscalers as well. And coupling that ability to come up with an idea on Monday, have a working prototype on a Friday, and most critically have that in the hands of users in seconds and not months, is kind of what we describe as the first wave of transformation, which is all about speed and driven very much by disruption, the fear of an Uber moment in your industry. But what we've seen recently, very few people talking about the Uber moment, most people realizing that speed is not an advantage if your competition's quick. It's table stakes, right? So your unfair advantage as an established business is your 100 years of operating data. And if you can reason over that and operationalize it very quickly and get that into the hands of developers, then you've got an opportunity to really explore new sources of value. So data fabrics becomes the third critical component. So agile, on-demand or self-service IT, cloud, and data. Get the three of those working together and you create a fast learning loop. Not new in industry. An American chap called Deming took that concept to the automotive industry in Japan after the war and created an economic miracle in 10 years. So all we're doing is turbocharging this fail fast, this plan, do, check, act cycle in enterprise. And with the components that we've talked about today, we can absolutely do that. And there's no doubt in the transformation game, which is transformation is a word that's very overused, we've gone through that speed horizon. We're definitely front and center in the going smart phase, where most of the companies that we talk to are trying to get to operationalize data that's locked up in silos. And now, since joining Google 17 months ago, I've seen a new horizon emerge, and that is where we can combine your insight, your company insight, with the largest repository of insight on the planet, such that we can create applications that self-improve, we can drive obscene levels of automation, such as the use of contact center AI, predictive analytics, predictive technologies, so that we can bring real intelligence to the enterprise. And I think this is kind of, we've heard Bill McDermott and others in SAP talk about the vision of an intelligent enterprise, which for us is all about combining user experience know-how with the automation that SAP brings at the back office. And I think this is probably the bit that we're most excited about. We can see that vision is actually beginning to emerge. So I'll leave you with this comment. I mean, the world is your oyster. We've got immense capability and power in our hands. And please come and see us at the booth. And we'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas and how we can go on this journey together. Many thanks.